All right. Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us for this month's From the Bench. My name is Sarah Songer, and I'm the program and studio manager at the San Francisco Center for the Book. And this month, we're happy to chat with Morgan Calderini from the award-winning Ladyfingers Letterpress, a queer and trans-owned and operated stationery and gift brand based in Colorado Springs, Colorado, founded by Morgan and her spouse, Arley Torsone. Morgan Calderini surrounds herself with rather odd yet satisfying specialties. Hot air balloon building, printmaking, and pie baking are all things she takes very seriously. After having received her BFA in printmaking from RISD in 2007, Calderini chose to redefine the hierarchical print shop archetype by establishing and managing Rhode Island's only community print shop at AS220 with a grant from AmeriCorps Vista. She has taught letterpress at the AS220 print shop and at Penland School of Crafts. When she's not baking blueberry pies or hunting for long-lost lithostones that people have been using as doorstops, she's flying Atlas, her 70-foot, 54,000 cubic foot hot air balloon that she built in 2007. So with that, welcome, Morgan.
Thank you, Sarah. Hi, everyone. I am coming to you from the back office of our studio today here in Colorado Springs. Arley is home. You might see him as another guest in the Zoom meeting. Her babysitter is sick and is joining in from home with one of our little ones today who may or may not be wearing pants, but hopefully, hi, Roland.
Oh, he's wearing pants, yes.
Oh, good.
Hi, everybody.
So Arley, chime in at any point or peace out if you have to go. That was a nice surprise. I'm glad you're here. So we could start with the slideshow. I'm a terrible editor, and I sent Sarah like a massive amount of pictures right before we got started today. And I'm excited to share them all with you and bring you on a little journey about how Ladyfingers came to be and what we're doing now. And I thought we would start with this. This is a recent print that we pulled off the press. We did some work around this time last year with someone who works specifically with artists who started out being artists and over the course of time wind up as business people, but maybe don't have that kind of background. So we did a lot of work to kind of think about like where we are and how we got here and what guides us in our work. And so Arley and I kind of came up with this short statement or values or vision or whatever kind of non-gross thing you want to put to this. But we really try to operate from this point of, are we standing up in the world? Are we giving back? And how are we taking care of ourselves and each other by taking naps? So this is some recent language that we have been implementing over the last year into our company, but we can move to the next slide. Here we are in our shop. Look at us, so shiny. Someone took a nice picture. We opened our retail shop in 2016, and we're gonna talk about that, but I wanted you to have this picture of the two of us in case Arley wasn't here today. My pronouns are she, her. Arley's are he, him. Arley is the trans half of Ladyfingers Letterpress, and I'm queer identified person, and we live in Colorado Springs. You may have heard about it recently in the news. I grew up here, and we'll come back to that too. But we could go to the next slide. We have never hidden who we are from the world or tried to operate as a business without being very out and proud of who we are. Last week, we had a customer come in who I thought might have some apprehensions about who we were as store operators. And before I process their order, I made sure that they knew who we were. It was a priest ordering some stationery, and I wanted to make sure they knew who we were before they ordered it. And they did order from us. It was an interesting conversation. But those are the kinds of things that are part of our world every day here as a retail storefront, which is only one part of what we do. So we like to make sure we don't leave that out. So we can continue on. I want to give you kind of the background or history about how we started Ladyfingers and what has informed our experiences. Sarah had mentioned that I went and studied printmaking at the Rhode Island School of Design. My goal was to get as far away as possible from Colorado Springs, where I grew up. And Rhode Island was as far away as I could envision getting. And I went to study graphic design thinking, oh, it's a really responsible choice. I'd be able to get a job and still be creative. And I got there and learned very quickly that I didn't want to be answering to clients or customers, and that I wanted to be making things and not be behind a computer every day. Once I had my first letterpress class, it was all over. So I declared printmaking. And Arley is part of the story. Arley, are you still around? Are you there?
Okay, yeah, I had to unmute myself.
Can you talk about how you got to Providence and what you studied?
Oh gosh. Yeah,
Briefly, it's a 30-minute call.
Okay. Well, I went to school at Parsons in New York, and I was kind of rebelling. Everything was technology and Photoshop this and Photoshop that, and I really wanted to use my hands and make things. So after I graduated, I found myself in Providence, Rhode Island, because there was a nonprofit I really wanted to work at that had a lot of community, that was like really embedded in the community. It had performance space and galleries and studio space. And I think, Morgan, I don't know if you're going to talk more about AS220, but
yeah, comes up next.
I got a job there working as the communications director, doing all the design work and sort of just like talking about what this organization did through design, which was really fun. But then this place called the Dirt Palace was looking for a roommate. And I was like, wow, that sounds right up my alley. So I applied and ended up being a Dirt Palacer for about 3 years. And that was another like a flip side of AS220, where it was also like this great community embedded place, but it was not a nonprofit. It was super underground. We had an inspection from the fire marshal, and we had to move our oven out of the kitchen and make it look like we just used it as a studio. So the Dirt Palace was awesome. They had lots of amazing things to offer Providence and artists, and they're still going today. And yeah, it's my spiel about it. You should look them up though. They're terrific. They're still doing awesome stuff.
Awesome, Sarah. If we could go to the next slide, that would be great. So there's a picture of Arley. I remember meeting him and his arms being covered in this blue ink from printing the prints. He was printing them like 4 up, like a massive on like garbage, like wrapping paper, like so. It was just like whatever we had, and we didn't have much. We were so young. And so this is the library and at the Dirt Palace. So Arley was living there when we met and making prints, self-taught, like didn't study printmaking at all in school, but you can get an idea of what it looks like. Like there's art everywhere, there's music, there's events, and we can go to the next slide, Sarah. There's a bunch. There's the kitchen Arley's talking about. Let's see, we'll keep going. Music shows, and all of these music shows, this was in like 2007 to like probably 2010. All of these music shows and spaces were advertised like in an era before there were phones in everyone's pockets like there are now. But if you keep going, like everybody just screen printed. It was a very unusual time and place, but shows for music and art, like any event, it was as much about the poster as it was about the event. And so this really was just like part of our culture and our world, is like everyone printed that we knew who was an artist. It didn't matter what kind of artist you were. and lettering and hand-drawn type and all kinds of stuff. And so just to give you a background of where we were at that time and how we got there. And so we can go to the next slide. Arley talked a little bit about AS220 and how he moved to Providence to work for this organization. This is their first building that was, in this condition. And Arley was part of that rehabilitation of this building. So the organization does some interesting work where they own the building. So it's artists and nonprofits. They were never going to be pushed out. And the first floor oftentimes is like market rate commercial real estate. And they structure the math so that those tenants can help subsidize the rent for the artists and the offices and nonprofits on the second and third floor. And so we both worked for this organization for 5 to 6 years, maybe even Arley longer. But if you go to the next slide, you can see what it looked like afterwards. The first floor had this bar called Muldowney's, a barber shop. The organization had a music space, gallery, bar, liquor license, which pays the bills. The second floor was a youth program for kids coming out of incarceration. There's the bar and restaurant. Perfect. We can keep going. It's the founder of the organization, Umberto Cranca, who's an artist himself. I think they are like approaching a 40-year anniversary soon. We can keep going. But the ideas behind this organization were like accessibility to equipment. Anybody could sign up to have a gallery show there. There was no curator. There was no hoop to jump through. Like you just had to wait until it was your turn. It was unjuried and uncensored. It was one of the only like wet dark rooms left in the region. There was a tech and makers lab before that was even a thing, a youth program for kids. And when I had moved to Providence to go to RISD, there was a silkscreen shop in the basement, but got shut down to fire code. So if we go to the next slide, I had graduated and was trying to figure out what I was doing with my life, or I was about to graduate, and I was riding my bike past this building here called the Dreyfus, which is the one on the direct corner. I want you to also note the one to the left because we're going to come to that next. But I was riding my bike past the Dreyfus on the way to breakfast with a friend, and there was like an A-frame chalkboard sign out front that Arley had hand lettered. And it said, come inside, artist studio tours, like renting soon. And so this was the newest project that AS220 was working on, was this building. They had bought it. The first floor was a restaurant. And then the second floor was office space and artist studios. And then the top 2 floors were artist studios for rent that were income capped. And so we stopped based on Arley's sign. It was a sign. And I went inside with my friend and I took a tour. We can go to the next slide. This is what the restaurant used to look like. This incredible speakeasy, it all got restored. The woman who works for this organization has a background in historical restoration and just also working to honor the businesses that are already in the building. So that's pretty great too. So we'll move to the next slide. I wound up applying to live in this building after getting a tour from Arley. And I lived just above the doorway where that sign was, in a little studio. So I moved from like being a student directly into moving into this building, which was a gift of a lifetime. And there was talk about, there's space at the end of the hall for a print shop, which was a huge deal to me because I thought, how will I ever be able to print without access to the studio at RISD? And I didn't want to sneak in, but I would have if it was necessary. Instead, this was the 500 square foot space at the end of the hall that had no plumbing. You'll see there's a sink, had no plumbing. So I worked with the person who was then the director at that time to write a grant for an AmeriCorps Vista position to teach community print, like to open a community co-op print shop, create an entire model to do that and secure all the funding through donations and equipment, and then build everything from scratch. So Luckily at that time, if we keep going, someone had donated a Vandercook proof press number 4. This is my classmate Meg. A bunch of us had graduated at that time and we all wanted somewhere to print. And so we all jumped in together. It is Meg, who's in New Orleans now. There's Arley and I. Look at those infants. You can see those posters on the back wall. Like, this was our office. It doesn't look that different. Oh my gosh, hold on, wait. This poster on the back wall, the landed beast noise, is actually right here. So we had just met here and we were talking about, like, you know, I would come to Arley and I would be like, can you help make a poster to advertise the classes and the workshops? And, you know, people were screen printing in the background, posters to advertise everything that we were up to. And we created the whole model from scratch. So if you keep going, this is what it looked like over time. Maybe a year later, we printed that press. Meg painted it red and black. Hope knows Meg. This is my tiny little desk in this room, and we just taught classes and we couldn't even afford ink. One of our first letterpress classes someone signed up for, and we had 1 can of ink, which might have come from Rusty. And the thought of like buying a can of ink was like a monumental amount of money. And we had a student who said, let me buy like 1 can of every color of ink as a donation. And so it really was just like, we thought we could teach a class with 1 can of ink, and we did. But I think as we move on, we had silkscreen, we had letterpress. These were kind of 2 separate rooms. We built a sink. We had a little intaglio press in the back, and we had no ventilation. So we did some kind of like less toxic intaglio. You can keep going. This is the opening party. But this picture I came across today and I was like, wow, this is incredible, because as we go on, you'll see more. But we would just like drag the table out on the street and print with people. Like, why not? Like, you want to advertise what you do upstairs, bring it on the street. So we just printed with people. We had artists in residence come from all over. We taught through the youth program, and we just printed all the time. And we'll keep going. And here's a very low quality picture. We had a key member system, and people could volunteer, people could teach. Many of these people are still there doing different things, but in my life, all these years later, we can keep going. We raised $25,000 every 2 years in something called the print lottery, which was like the most unbelievably stressful thing at that time. But we took donations of prints and we sold tickets, which taught me really valuable lessons that I'm so grateful for now. And at the time was just so challenging to also navigate. So this is what it looked like in the office, complete chaos all the time. We outgrew that space down the hall, and we moved to this windowless room that was a closet. And Arley had an office there. That was his computer in the back where he's drawing a calendar. We actually printed an events calendar, so we'll keep going every month. And somewhere along the line, like, Arley and I started working on wedding invitations for people who were students in the class and printing stuff. So that's what those are, just like a little glimmer of something to come later. And as we, one of the reasons we outgrew and moved to that closet down the hall was this guy right here. His name is Jacques Baidon. He is a Haitian printer, letterpress, and offset. And he showed up one day and he said, Morgan, we have to have an offset press. I think we need one in here. And he showed up every day, and he eventually found a press, and we bought this press. It's an AB Dick. And we moved it in an elevator, and he taught classes and he printed everything for the organization, and he taught me how to do offset printing, and he has his own studio now in Providence and continues to teach his absolute gym. But we started working with him on posters like this to promote the classes we were doing. So Arley designed the one on the left as just an experiment, because we had only done silkscreen at that point for advertising. And then the poster on the right is one that is kind of their very first, I would say, dipping our toes into the activism work that we're really known for today. By this point, we were a couple, and we wanted to get married, and it wasn't legal in the state of Rhode Island at that time. And there were a whole host of representatives who voted against civil unions. It wasn't even gay marriage at that time, but they voted against civil unions. We were engaged to be married. And so we thought that it would be helpful for everyone in town to know who those people were with their names, phone numbers, and contact information. And we put these all around town so that people could get in touch with these representatives and know who they were when they went to go vote again, or contact them to let them know their thoughts. Again, different era. But we heard later on there were people who were working in the state house who saw these posters, and that it did make an impact on how people voted. And people were really concerned that their name was associated with their vote. So that was interesting and powerful and came early in our lives. And if we move on, we spent a lot of time trying to get married in the state we lived in. This was one of the first signs Arley designed and Jacques printed with us. We waited like 13 or 14 hours to testify at the Rhode Island marriage thing before the panel, and it didn't pass. And so we spent a lot of time at this point in our lives fighting for marriage equality, so we can keep going. There's that building next to the one that I mentioned before. So we had been working many, many years to try and grow the print shop, and we outgrew it. And so the organization bought this building too, called the Mercantile Block. And there was space on the first floor and on the second floor. This is the space. It was formerly a commercial print shop. So it had this like history and lineage of being a print shop. So when we moved in, like there was all of these presses and equipment in here, and the building was in this state. And so over time, the conversation evolved to like, let's build the community print shop bigger. So there was also this rumor that there was this massive press that RISD had in storage. And so I tried to track that down. And what you're seeing here is before they put all the windows on the building, we had a crane deliver this press that RISD donated. And it's a tackage press with a 10-foot press bed that was custom built and never had been out of the crate and had been in storage for decades.
What was your name? What was your name for the press?
What did I call it, Arley?
The Unicorn Press.
The Unicorn Press.
Because
No one had
everybody
ever heard
about
of it. No one had ever seen it. Like it was in storage 30 minutes from Providence, and that hole in the side we cut in the crate. No one had ever been inside the crate since it had been packed. And so I crawled inside that crate with a flashlight and convinced the president of the college to give it to us. And then had it moved and was later accused of theft. But it all worked out. So we had to move the press in, you can see, before the construction was done because it's built into the building. I didn't want this press ever to be in storage again. And so it's built into the building. Those are all the people that made that happen. It's a first floor space with a second floor space. It was under construction for years. I worked on this. These are other presses. Once you start being the person people here will take the presses, everyone in town calls you. This is a litho press from LaSalle University they were going to throw out. We moved that too. We can keep going. There we are unloading it into the building. We just like put everything in the building. We could keep going, but there's the press out of the crate. It's pneumatic. It's an etching intaglio relief press. And we could keep going. We did all kinds of great community projects, and it just was, it is an incredible tool. There's nothing else like it out there. The second floor has silkscreen. First floor has letterpress offset, and then second floor is all silkscreen. There's the press by the window. Out the window is a pay by the hour sports club. That's not that anymore. Offset printing. We can keep going. There's the alley. Arley designed all the branding, signs, and everything. We worked to implement that whole project. We worked on this for such a long time, and we'll keep going. And we also started working together on wedding invitations at that point in time. So Arley did a lot of hand lettering and illustration. We finally decided we were going to get married, and that was in 2011. and it still wasn't legal in Rhode Island. So we rented a school bus and drove everyone we loved over the border to Massachusetts, which was the only state it was legal at that point in time. But we printed our wedding invitations, and we didn't feel in any way obligated to follow anyone else's rules about weddings, since we couldn't actually get married. So we did this giant poster, 4-color, 3 colors of offset with Jacques, 1 color of neon letterpress. There it is. It's beautiful. And we can keep going on the fancy pictures. So our wedding invitation, this is going to really date us. What we had posted pictures on Flickr, and it went viral on the internet, as viral as something went at that time. And so at that point, we were so tired of living nonprofit life, and we knew if we were going to keep working that hard, we wanted to work that hard together and with each other, and to our own benefit. And so we're gonna keep going. We decided to quit our jobs the month we got married and go to work with each other. And so we went to find a press for ourselves. This was off the side of a road in Rhode Island in a shipping container. This guy had a rotting press in his front yard, and we drove by all the time. And I would say, like, oh my God, what's wrong with that guy? Why is he like, and it was really just a sign for people who would like come yell at him about the press. And he'd be like, no, I have shipping containers in the back. And so of course we wanted the press at the very back of the shipping container. And he said, I have to sell them all before I get to that one. We rented a studio. This was a little tiny 400 square foot studio. I think it was $300. And we shared it with our friend Carol there. He finally delivered the presses. We bought them for $900. I bought one press, and he showed up with several of them. We moved them in. You can see how rusted they are. We restored the whole thing. So he's like, well, this press was in the way. He brought all of those. And so we kept one and we sold the others to finance what we were up to. We can keep going. And then we started working with couples, specifically focusing on LGBT couples. We would work with anyone, but really what we wanted to do was help other couples who were experiencing the kinds of things we were with wedding planning. And so it felt like our own form of activism to be able to really provide an experience to these folks that was positive, because at that point, there was no one doing wedding stuff. There we are. We got married. We quit our jobs. We were so young. Look at us. Yep. So there's the studio, all functional. It was tiny and we outgrew it quickly. So as we keep going, this is this, our very first cease and desist letter was for this holiday card. That shape is trademarked, and we had made peppermint scented holiday invitations. We can keep going. So we rented this studio in the same building, which was about 1,100 square feet. And we could keep going again with our friend Carol. It seemed absolutely massive at the time, and it was beautiful, had all this great light, and we filled it up quickly. And by this point, we were working on very, very bespoke wedding invitations, people who had rented private jets, crazy stuff that other people wouldn't be willing to do. So we can keep going. We were tanning hides. We were importing marbled and sheet paper from Italy, from the village where people were getting married, which is this project right here. We had a very big staff. We were hand binding all these books. We tanned all the leather. They were foil stamped. They had tipped in like welcome pages. This was a huge project. This is some of the hand lettering that Arley's really known for. And
it was also worth noting, if I can interrupt for a second, just seeing that project, I got PTSD from looking at that. I just feel like the higher the budget, the more, well, as you can imagine, the more intense the clients were.
The expectations grew with the budget for sure. And at this point, we were kind of really questioning what we were doing, because it felt very far away from what we wanted to do, which was like make things with each other that were beautiful and to put them in the world for people who really wanted them. And so we felt very conflicted, I will say. And you'll see how this develops. So at this point in time, we say like, well, why don't we return to like making things together? And so we designed this line of stationery and greeting cards because couples were coming back to us, the really sweet ones, being like, oh, we had a baby, we bought a house, we want some holiday cards. And so we're like, why are we like making all of these one of a kind projects and destroying Arley's hand and, like all of this stuff? Like we could design one card and print it over and over and sell it. And so it was this kind of like revolution for us. So we designed this line of cards in 2013. We can keep going. We built a booth. This is in our studio to take to New York to the National Stationery Show, which is rest in peace, no longer with us. There's our booth at the trade show at the Javits Center. People came from all over the country to buy things. At this point, we also got to meet Martha Stewart. Got to throw Martha in. And we were invited to hand letter and design and completely pay for this project ourselves so we could be at her event. And there it was, so glamorous. And so, I think at this point, we're really trying to think about what we wanted and recalibrating again. We continued to grow our wholesale line. We had a great response to that. As you can see, the booth got bigger. We made more cards. It was really super exciting. And it felt like a great step in our business to be able to make something and have that kind of consistent income. So we'll keep going. This is 2013, July of 2013, in Colorado Springs. My family's home burned down in a wildfire here. And, we were asking all these big life questions, and then this fire hit, and I had proclaimed I would never return to Colorado Springs. And I have eaten those words so many times now, but we decided at this point, my family lost everything, that we would come back to Colorado Springs to kind of be part of that process, and see what it looked like. I'm running over time, Sarah, sorry. So we packed up our studio. I'm gonna super speed. So we packed up the studio, we moved, got some anchor tattoos for Rhode Island. We could keep going. We drove all the way here with our equipment. We put my stuff in my parents' garage, and we planned to move somewhere civilized like Denver or Boulder. We bought Mealy vertical presses, used, delivered them, totally learned how to use them, having never used them before. This is a very staged photo in my parents' garage, great lighting. But just to say, like, you never know what studio someone's working out of. Like, we've had these massive, beautiful ones. And then we rented a storefront when we couldn't find any industrial space here in Colorado Springs, because all the marijuana industries needed the same things we did. Great heavy equipment on floors or growing supplies, great power needs. So we rented the studio, we rehabbed it, we ripped up all the carpet. It was ugly on the outside. We spent a lot of time getting it ready, and we opened. And we had a tiny retail front where we mostly sold our stuff and traded things with other people we knew, because we had no idea what we were doing. We didn't intend to start a retail shop. It just kind of happened because that was the space we could find. We had our first kid the month we opened the shop. He's now 6.5. There is the outside of the store now. We got a grant to restore the whole outside of the building, and we didn't just restore our storefront. We did the whole building, the whole block. After our work with AS220, we really understood how important it was to work with everyone around you. So we did that. This is our shop now. You can see some of the work that we make in the background. There's that CNP that we originally moved in. Doesn't get a lot of use these days anymore. So we can keep going. Now we sell tons of other stuff. We have 2 Mealy verticals. We really print on one of them. We have our Vandercook 219. We sell our cards in over 1,000 other stores across the country. This poster on the wall from Amos Kennedy, if we could go back a second, sorry, says, "Put the message in the hands of the people and move on." And I think that's actually like a huge part of what Arley and I think about every day. So we'll keep going. Those are posters by our friend, including Meg. Those are all the cards we make and sell in the store. Maybe I already put that picture in, sorry. You keep going. There's those Mealys. They can print up to 2,000 cards an hour, which is great. It's all pneumatic again. There's our CNP.
The presses and the studio are all visible from the store. So when someone comes in looking for a card, they could just kind of look further back into the shop and just see the studio and everybody at work and seeing the products being made, which is pretty cool.
Awesome. Thanks, Arley. These are some of our protest posters that came. We started with one, and then we have added over the years a bunch of other ones, and now we make almost 20 of them. And totally inspired by Amos's quote. This is the newest one, is the Access is Love one, based on some friends' experience going to a coffee shop. They saw our poster in the window, but they couldn't get in the store because there was no ramp and their kid uses a wheelchair. And I wrote to the shop owner and said, hey, let's try to figure out like an access to your business that you have our poster in the window of. And so that's some recent advocacy work we've been trying to do. Still so much to do. These are some cards of ours. We can keep going, but we then, right before the pandemic, had twins. And during COVID, Arley taught a hand lettering class from home. We just tried to survive like everyone else, but those are all on YouTube if anyone wants to learn some hand lettering. This is our friend Christina, who has her candle business in our basement at Ladyfingers. You can read more about her business, Cultivating Luminescence, on our Instagram account, but we have done all her branding and design. We opened another store at the Fine Arts Center in 2001, which is the local art museum. This is a couple glimpses from there, and we do a lot of events and programming with them, like a print day from last year. Again, taking the printing out on the street and printing with people is something that we still like, feels like magic all these years later. And so this is a project with some other friends you can read about. But we sell this product in our store, and all the funding is donated to a local pantry, neighborhood pantry. Keep going. Some more of our activism work and prints with other friends. I could talk about all this forever. Some recent prints, again, people in the park protesting, giving people messages, and letting people pick what they're attracted to and share them in the places that they need to. This is most recently in November. Our community was part of a tragedy, and we have been doing our best to support folks. And part of that was like putting a call out when people were asking what they could do to help, to ask people to send us rainbow flags so that the whole town could hang up rainbow flags in response to the violence. And it's been a massive part of our work recently, is supporting survivors and victims and their families who are part of that shooting here in Colorado Springs around Club Q. So not typically what you think of when you think of like community print shop, but that's some recent work we've been up to. And we have some prints coming as part of that in the next couple months too, but we're trying to move slower and with a lot of intention. These are brand new cards we just released that Arley has come out with, that I just printed for not Mother's or Father's Day, but parents. There's a lack of those in the world. And so we're always trying to think about how our work can serve voices that aren't typically part of the marketplace, and families that need those messages too. So keep going. There's our family. Hi. And this is what the back of our cards say now, and I'll end with this. And if anyone has questions, I promise we'll try to keep it brief. But thank you so much, Sarah. Sorry for running over.
No, that was great. You ripped through a lot of slides.
So many.
Most of the comments are people recognizing people they know and loving the Dirt Palace and your activism. And so if anyone has any questions for a pretty small group, feel free to go ahead and unmute yourself and ask if you've got a question for Morgan or Arley.
I have a question.
Oh.
I wonder, in Colorado Springs, there's press at Colorado College, but are there other letterpress people in your community there, or are you to the holdouts?
Aaron Kowick is head of the press at Colorado College, who actually used to teach at the Center for Book Arts. he messaged me he would be teaching his class at CC today on the press during the call. So hi, Aaron. He said he was going to listen to the recording. So Aaron has his own press and then teaches at CC. There are not a ton of letterpress folks. There is a kind of community intelligio studio that's in Manitou Springs, but there's not a ton. There's a few folks with Rizos in town, and a handful of screen printers, but I would say not a ton of printmaking for sure.
All right, anybody else? All right, well, thank you guys. Thanks, Morgan, and thank you, Arley, for joining us from home. It was a really fun history of your lives, and I think a lot of people's lives. I mean, I saw a lot of recognition of people's own experiences in there. I've been getting text messages actually. So thank you guys so much for joining us for this month's tour, and thanks again to Morgan and Arley. And next month, we'll be talking with Jocelyn Bergen of Zephyrin Press, and so you'll get a link for that soon, and you can sign up to join us next month. Thanks again, everyone.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, Morgan. Bye.